Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the November Board of Pharmacy meeting. I'm Victor Law. I'm the Vice President of the board. Our President, Amy Gutierrez, is going to be a little late, so I'm here to preside the meeting. The meeting is now called to order. Just a reminder that pharmacists and pharmacy technicians who attend in person may be awarded 6 hours of CE in accordance with the board CE policy. Sign in and sign out on the day of the meeting will be required for the CE. For any questions or verifications of the meeting, call Laura Hendricks at 916-574-7918. Or you can access the board website at www.pharmacy.ca.gov. And just a reminder, this meeting is open to the public and is also accessible to the physically disabled. And our board mandate is for the protection of the consumers. So if I happen to forget to have public comment, please raise your hand and come up and make your comment. Okay, now let's call the meetings to order, and we need a roll call for the board members. So starting on my left with Debbie.
Hi, Debbie Veal, professional member.
Ricardo Sanchez, public member.
Alan Shadd, professional member.
Victor Law, professional member.
Albert Wall, professional member.
Greg Lippy, public member.
And other member MJ is in the back. So I guess we need to wait for him.
You can start, and then you can go ahead and start. You just can't take any action.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let's go to the agenda. And number 2 is public comments on items not on the agenda or agenda items for future meetings. So is anybody who need to come up to have a public comment? Seeing none, thank you. Let's move on to agenda item number 3. July 25th and 26th, 2017 board meetings minutes. So board members? Oh, sorry. This is the action item, so we need to have all the members to be here because we have only 6 members, so
We don't have a
quorum is not established, so we cannot do action items. Then we have to move on to, let's jump to agenda item number 6. Recognition and celebration of pharmacists licensed in California for over 50 years. I think we have one member here. Is Mr. Vito Fabricio here? Okay, could you please come up? Okay, it works. Hi, Mr. Fabricio. Could you tell us something about yourself?
Well, let's see. I started in this profession at the age of 14,
You win.
and I mopped floors, cleaned the fountain, made deliveries, went to school, bought the store, bought another store, and sold it, worked as a relief pharmacist, did a little work for Long's, Kmart, and here I am. Now retired. I work a couple of days a month at an independent pharmacy. So that's my 50 years.
Do you have any family members who come with you today? Would you want to bring them up and introduce to us?
First of all, I'd like to bring up my wife, Cheryl. "51 years of marriage." Next, I would like to bring up my granddaughter. Granddaughter. Gianna.
Who's expecting your great granddaughter?
And we're expecting a great granddaughter.
Very good.
And next, I would like to bring up my son, Jason. And last but not least, my sister-in-law, Robbie Goodman. And I thank each and every one of them for attending this honorary moment.
So, on behalf of the California State Board of Pharmacy, it is my honor to present this pin to the 50 years old Mr. Vito Fabrizio, right?
Yes.
Okay, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Chair a little bit so that way I have a little more room. We can get a good picture of all. Here. Mic too. No photos. I'm gonna do one with her camera and then we'll do some for the board as well, okay? So make sure I can get everyone in there. Oh. All right, everyone, 1, 2, 3. All look good? Okay, then we're gonna take some for our board. Oh, you want me to use to take them on? Are you sure? Okay, all right, I wanna make sure we get it for everyone. Okay, congratulations. Congratulations.
Okay, let's move up to agenda item number 8, the Legislation and Regulations Committee report. The chairman, Mr. Greg Lippy.
Thank you. I had my dress rehearsal this morning in Legislation Regulation Committee meeting, so here we go. The first of a 2-year legislative session ended on October 15th, 2017. The governor signed all of the board-sponsored measures this year, and here they are. The omnibus provisions in SB 800. SB 800's board-specific provisions include 4013 to amend D1 to add designated representative to the list of individuals who need to join the email subscriber list. Number 4316 to clarify the board's authority to issue a cease and desist for unlicensed activity, and that the issuing of the order will be delegated to the executive officer. The measure also repeals 4001.5, which established a requirement for the Joint Committee to review the state shortage of pharmacists and make recommendations on a course of action to alleviate the shortage. The repeal was not board-sponsored, but rather was included by the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee. Next is SB 351. SB 351 allows the board to issue hospital satellite compounding pharmacy licenses for satellites that do not need to be located in the acute care hospital building. This measure also allows the board to issue a hospital pharmacy license that can be located outside of the general acute care hospital, but in another physical plant regulated under the California Department of Public Health's hospital license. Next is SB 443, which allows county emergency medical services to restock ambulances through use of an emergency medical services automated drug delivery system known as EMADDS. It's licensed by the board and located within a county operated fire department. As part of the measure, the board will issue a license to the emergency medical services provider for the use of the EMADDS and can issue a license to his designated paramedic as well. Next is SB 510. By the way, if you have any comments related to anything that I'm going over, please raise your hand. I'm not going to stop at each one. So SB 510 repeals an outdated statutory requirement specifying the environments in which a pharmacy must compound sterile drug products. SB 752 creates a designated representative reverse distributor license and shortens the waiting period an applicant must wait to retake the pharmacist licensure examination to 45 days. The next group that I'm going to talk about is in attachment 2 and 3. It's chaptered legislation impacting the practice of pharmacy or the board's jurisdiction with board-established positions. The governor signed several measures impacting the board's jurisdiction where the board had an established position. Attachment 2 includes a copy of the chaptered language for each of the measures, and here they are. AB 40. The board had a support position. This measure requires the Department of Justice to make cures available to a practitioner through either an online internet web portal or an authorized health information technology system as defined. The measure included an urgency provision and took effect immediately upon signature by the governor. Next is AB 208. The board's position on this was neutral after board amendments were accepted. This changes the deferred entry of judgment program to a pretrial program. It expands the conditions under which someone is eligible for the program and reduces the conditions under which someone could be removed from the program. It reduces the length of the program compliance to 6 to 12 months and prohibits information sharing once someone is in the program. The accepted board amendments ensure the board will have access to relevant information relating to the arrest and participation in the program. Next is AB 401. The board has a support if amended position, and it was not amended, so therefore we didn't support it. It establishes regulatory framework for telepharmacy and establishes mandatory reporting by wholesalers of suspicious drug orders. Next is AB 602. This is also support if amended, and was this one where they did? Yeah, they did accept our amendments. It requires pharmacies that dispense non-prescription diabetes test strips pursuant to a prescription to retain records. It requires the board to post the names of authorized distributors of such test strips and makes it unprofessional conduct for a licensee to seek reimbursement for such devices under specified conditions. The measure contained an urgency provision and took effect upon signature of the governor. Next is SB 17. Board had a support position. This was aimed at drug price transparency by establishing reporting requirements for prescription drugs cost and volume for health plans and reporting requirements for drug manufacturers regarding rate increases. Next is SB 547. The board's position was support. This allows the board to hire its own counsel. In addition to these bills I just mentioned, several other measures were signed by the governor. Attachment 3 includes a compilation of all the changes to the relevant sections of the Business and Profession Code and Health and Safety Code. The information will also be posted on the board's website. That concludes the legislation portion of my report. Now we're going to, yes.
Finish your thought. I don't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I think that I just want to publicly state to the board, we actually sponsored 4 bills and we had provisions in additional bills. And so I'd like to thank the authors that took our bills. We had a very good year legislatively. So Senator Roth, Senator Stone, Senator Hernandez, and Senator Hill, and then Assemblywoman Aguirre Curry all had provisions that benefited the board, and they were all enacted. So public thanks to the authors who took our bills. Thank you. We're going to be back this year, we think. So.
Okay, now we're going to be discussing the regulations. First group, or the first one, board adopted, approved by the Office of Administrative Law. This proposed regulations to amend and or add Title 16 CCR Sections 1702, 1702.1, 1702.2, and 1702.5 related to renewal requirements. Effective January 1, 2018, these regulations establish standardized reporting of convictions and discipline at the time of renewal for pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, and designated representatives. Additionally, sections 1702.1 and 1702.2 require pharmacy technicians and designated representatives to be fingerprinted as a condition of renewal if the Department of Justice does not have an electronic fingerprint record on file. Section 1702.5 requires non-resident wholesalers and non-resident pharmacies at the time of renewal to report disciplinary actions taken by any government agency since the last renewal of the license. A copy of the adopted regulation text is posted on the board's website. Next, board adopted, submitted for administrative review to the Department of Consumer Affairs or the Office of Administrative Law. The board currently has 3 regulations undergoing review by the Department or the Office of Administrative Law. These are related to the board's disciplinary guidelines, fee schedule, and inventory reconciliation report of controlled substances. Attachment 4 provides a summary of each of the regulation changes as well as a general timeline. The board adopted text is posted on the board's website. Next group, board approved.
No,
Yes.
I had a question on that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Greg. You know, we're talking about this proposed. Oh, microphone. You think I'd catch on, wouldn't you? Proposed regulations to amend the disciplinary guidelines. You know, it appears that this has gone on for over 2 years. Is that?
At least.
Is it now? Do we know anything about the history of this? Has it been mentioned? Did
This
I
is
miss
Ann's-
something?
This is Ann's rulemaking, and so let's have her provide the report.
So the rulemaking, part of the reason that it has taken so long is that it was initially disapproved by the Office of Administrative Law. So we had gone through the rulemaking process, and at the end, OAL disapproved it, and that happened in January. And then after that, then the board took the necessary action it needed to remedy the concerns that OAL had addressed. Those were resolved, and at the March board meeting, then there was no additional action required of the board. So we submitted it to the department in April, the end of April, and it's going through the various reviews. It's not in the department any longer. It is, I believe,
Out
with,
there.
yeah, it's going through the different control agencies review.
But it has not yet gone to OAL, which is the
Fine.
review agency.
Okay.
Oh, good. Good.
Satisfied?
Good. Keep rolling.
Don't be satisfied.
Keep rolling. Sorry.
Do not be satisfied. Okay. Next, board approved to initiate rulemaking undergoing pre-notice review by the Department of Consumer Affairs or the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency, or return to board staff for revisions pursuant to such review. The regulations would amend Title 16 of the code related to the following: compounding beyond use dates, third-party logistics providers and dangerous drug distributors, the pharmacy technician application, the pharmacy technician training requirements, the pharmacy technician certification programs, off-site storage, the naloxone fact sheet, pharmacy ownership management and control, including trusts. And on this one, with the pharmacy ownership management control, including trusts, the regulation was returned to board staff for changes after pre-notice review was completed. The board staff will be working on making the requested changes as appropriate and will resubmit the regulation materials. Attachment 5 includes a timeline for each of the proposed regulations as well as the board-approved text. Next, board approved to initiate rulemaking.
Well, I just have a question. So, Jenny, are we okay with the timelines here?
Is it taking too long to get through the review process? Is that the question?
Yeah, really.
The answer is yes. It's taking too long to get things through the review process. And we're working with our attorney and we're working with the department in efforts to focus a little more quickly on some of the rulemakings. They seem, our rulemakings, we have a number of them and they're languishing, we think.
I'm just looking like at the technician one. I mean, we approved it in October 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So that one was returned to the
Yeah,
board
we returned
for,
our board in March, but I mean, still.
Yeah, so
I mean,
then
it took
we
them
had
from
to
October
find
to
her.
March, and then. I mean, is there anything that we can or need to do as a board, like?
We have had various discussions and we have a meeting scheduled with the director next week.
I'm
So
sorry, meeting
we have a
scheduled for-
meeting with the director of the department next week on this
Okay.
issue.
It seems like we go through this a lot with time lags, and it's usually not our problem. It usually happens at the next level.
Sometimes it is, but yeah.
Yeah.
Our concern is, as you can see, we've got a number of regs that are at various stages of completion, but they're in the process, and for most of them, it's beyond our control in order to get them through the final.
Are they short-staffed at the agency level?
I
or-
can't answer that. I don't know.
Okay.
Are we
A comment?
finding that their comments back, Ann or Jenny, are reasonable or nitpicky? I mean, can we quantify, or do we not want to comment?
Perhaps
All
not.
the above.
The reality is part of the review process is you may get comments back during that stage that you need to address. And so if we can't accommodate the comments, we have to work through what an alternative solution would be, because you have to address the comments that come back. So, but generally it's more, we believe it's more delay with other folks getting to what is a priority for us in a timely manner.
Yeah.
Comment?
Danny Martinez with the California Pharmacists Association. Good morning, board members. To your comment, at least on one of the regulations dealing with the emergency regulations for the beyond use dates for non-sterile compounds, we've received a lot of our members' concerns via email, phone, whatever, saying what's going on with these emergency regulations. CPHA has sent a letter to DCA's top leadership on this delay, asking them, pleading them to please. Get moving with whatever we can do to help to get that moving.
When did you do that?
We did that, I believe, a couple of weeks ago.
At least 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, at least, yeah. And I initially did not get any feedback, but then I made a follow-up call. They kind of explained a little bit of what they're dealing with. What they told me is that they're trying to see if once they get through their legal staff review of these regulations, apparently they're going to kick it back to you guys for a 5-day notice for public comment, and then once that's done, then they get sent to OAL for their process.
Notice?
The 5-day notice is the required notice period on an emergency regulation.
That's
That's the
specific
pre-
to the emergency.
Yeah,
right?
but that's part of the
Do we
process.
have to meet then to
No.
push it
No,
forward?
you don't need
no.
to do anything. The goal is to, the advantage of using an emergency rulemaking is you put the regulation in effect first, and then you come in and do the formal rulemaking behind it. So this is part of the stage, but our concern is that we are now post 3 months following the emergency declaration, and it starts looking less like an emergency the longer it stays tied up in review.
Right.
And in which case, kind of, why don't you just do a regular rulemaking if it's going to take that long?
And based on my very loose guess on the timeline, I'd say probably if they implemented all the steps that they told me that they were taking within the time frame that they were thinking of, they were estimating around Thanksgiving is when they're actually going to be implementing the emergency regulations.
But you said because it's an emergency, it's actually already in effect.
Not yet. We have to file it with OAL. This is the pre-review required by the department and agency in order to put in place the emergency.
Just wanted to make that comment.
So does it change the effective dates then?
Well, it means it won't go into effect sooner. Yeah, and then
I
the
mean,
clock
are there-
starts.
There's not effective dates in.
Not yet, no.
Sometimes we put a date in there, so.
We don't have a date yet.
Right. Thank you, Danny.
Okay, the next ones are board approved to initiate rulemaking, board staff drafting rulemaking documents for pre-notice review by the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. The board currently has 2 proposed regulation packages being prepared by staff for submission to the department for its pre-notice review. The first is related to automatic refill programs, and the second is related to compounding. Attachment 6 includes a timeline for each of the proposed regulations, as well as a board-approved text. Next is future committee meeting dates, and I've been informed that one of the dates on here is incorrect. Do we have a corrected one yet? No. Okay, so the first 3 dates are January 17th, 2018, April 24th, July 10th. And the last one, October 20th, is a Sunday, so it's going to be changed.
Oh.
And
So can I just go back to the prior one? So
sure.
the automatic refill we've had May 3rd, and we're getting it ready to hand it off. And then the other one we approved on July 25th. Do you just have an estimate of when we're going to be handing it off?
So for the compounding one, we were waiting for the review of the emergency regulation because they overlap. So as soon as that one's finalized, then we'll know if we need to make conforming changes, and then it'll be quick. It's ready. We just want to make the conforming changes so it's not returned by the department for.
Okay, and then the
conforming
first one I asked about was the automatic refill, which is May 3rd.
Yeah, so that one we have recently submitted, but I think this week. So that one is now with the department.
Now in their hands.
Yeah.
To sit on. Oops, who said that?
This concludes the Legislation Regulation Committee report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lippy.
Fine, John. Fine, John.
We're gonna move up the agenda item a little bit. Let's move up to number 13, the Executive Officer's Report. Jenny?
Okay. Once everybody gets, this is agenda item, what, 13? Was it 13?
13. 13.
Okay, sounds like 13. All right. The lucky 13. Okay. The first thing that I'd like to discuss briefly is it's 6 months post last report on the performance on our licensing exams. And so the first item in my report deals with the CPJE and the NAPLEX scores. I put into the report the last 6 months worth of scores in the small table on the top, which gave California having an overall pass rate, those that graduated from California schools, of 91%. And then if you look at the overall pass rate, which is adjusted somewhat downward by the other participants in our exam pool, the overall pass rate for the last 6 months on the CPJE was 78.8%. If you compare that to the NAPLEX, the overall pass rate for the same candidates that took our exam, more or less, there might have been one or two that aren't included in there, is 93.3%. If you look specifically at the CPJE, as I said, those that graduated from California schools had an overall pass rate of 91%. This coincides with the period of the June graduates, so typically that they do better than the other folks that are off cycle or that have to retake the exam. The overall pass rate for those from outside California was 67.5%, and then from the foreign trained pharmacists it was 60%.
Looks like the NAPLEX is a lot easier than the CPJE.
The NAPLEX has a higher pass rate.
And a lower fail rate.
Yes. I'm not sure I'm going to use the word easy, but yes.
I would
then
say
you can,
easier.
Well, you did.
Right.
Okay, I better stop this. All right. We also have a 5-year percentage based on a whole year of what the overall pass rate were of the two exams, and you can see them side by side comparison. The pass rate overall fluctuates a little bit based on the time of the year, and then some years seemingly have better pass rates than others. I think it's just the reality of what it is. So you can see NABP's exam has moved all over the place from a low of 90 to a high of 98.5, and ours during the same period went from a low of 68 to a high of 80%. So, and what happens is we report only NAPLEX scores for those people that take the exam for California. We do not report their overall pass scores. These are just those that qualified to take the exam in California, what they did on the NAPLEX. Are there any questions about the overall scores? You can actually go back and see the detailed demographics report. It's hard to tell if that's the case, but people do think that the applicant pool has changed from where it was 10 years ago. Yes, and that's not just the profession of pharmacy. We understand that for social workers and marriage, the same thing. So it's kind of a characteristic of what's going on. So, and we don't know, of course, what NEBP's pass rate's going to be until we get the scores ourselves. So we have no involvement there. Go right ahead. I do that on a regular basis. I think that's
They'll believe that.
that's a parental duty.
It won't work.
Whatever.
Albert?
Yeah,
It will not work.
Jenny, on the 2014, 13 to 14,
Yes.
that you have more than 100% on it. Should not be 98%, should be 96 something.
What year?
Line number 2. You got 4.2% fail, and then you got 98%. So you add up more than
It's a
100%.
typo, and I'm sorry.
So it should be 96% or so.
Yes.
Instead of 98%.
It should be 95.8 instead
Yeah.
of 98.5.
Yeah, right.
We'll have to look. I don't know. So
Should be
we'll correct that
95.
online.
Should be 95.8, I think.
Well, we could recalculate because you've got the raw numbers. Anybody got a calculator?
Yeah.
Okay.
it's-
All right. Problem solved. Thank you. The accountant caught it. Thank you.
Transpositions.
That's why we have a blend of people on this board. Okay. Any public comments on the exam pass rate? All right. Thank you. Okay, and then board members, again, I want to remind those of you that are pharmacists, and then we'll get to the public members in a moment, but those of you that are pharmacists, the president has asked that each of you spend one meeting a year with the competency committee. So if you haven't signed up, please do so. Then we will also add in the public members so that they also get an opportunity to experience the exam as it gets constructed.
I thought we didn't have to be competent.
You thought you didn't have to be what?
I didn't think we had to be competent, so we didn't have to go to the competency thing.
Good try.
I think the chair of this committee or the acting president should get control of this meeting before we go downhill. All right. That's just what I think. All right.
It's control. We might not have any more quorum.
A massive
Yeah.
walkout? Is that what we're talking about? Okay. All right. The next agenda item, moving right on. FDA's guidance for industry titled Product Identifier Requirements under the Drug Supply Chain Security Act Compliance Policy. At the last board meeting, the board directed that a letter be written to the FDA about their delay in the implementation date of the track and trace requirements for manufacturers. They pushed the date back from November 27th, 2017 to November 27th, 2018. A letter has been drafted. It's with the president for review, and she's not quite ready to review it. The comments basically said, because this wasn't really asking so much for our comments as it was, this is what we're going to do, is that basically if you keep pushing back the dates, no one's going to implement the requirements, and you effectively burn the early adopters, because the very people that you need to help push you through the initiative then ends up spending money for compliance that they don't have to do on time. So that is the gist of our comments, and I just lost my report. There we go. Anyway, so the letter will go. I saw the FDA in person, and I met with the track and trace folks when I was back in Washington in October. I had a discussion with them. I told them what we were doing and where we were going with respect to our comments on this, and they said, fine, send them in. So that's what we're doing. We just haven't done it yet, but the letter has been drafted. And then, well, we're talking about what I've been up to. I've been able to attend various national meetings. The practice of pharmacy is clearly going across state lines, as everyone in this room knows. We may regulate at the state level, but our impact actually goes across state lines, and what other states do comes into California by what they allow to license. So the first meeting I went to was the beginning, I think, or the end of September. It was a 50-state meeting on compounding and outsourcing. They gave me the opportunity to speak, and I spoke a little bit about outsourcing issues for us, philosophically why we are regulating outsourcing the way we are and what our thoughts were. Pretty much that's what went on there. We had 2 days of discussion where the FDA is going with respect to compounding, and there was a lot of attention at this one to outsourcing and some veterinary compounding.
Did the NECC issue come up?
Not so much other than to say that it happened. That is now 5 years old. It's been 5 years since that happened.
That was really the impetus for us doing what we're doing.
Well, we've been licensing for a while, but it certainly caused us to rev up and reevaluate everything we were doing in the area. Yeah,
Thank
exactly. The National Association of Boards of Pharmacy had their annual meeting with executive officers where they bring us all in so we can all share whatever's going on in each of our states. It's a good opportunity for information exchange, take a look at what other states are doing and share information. I was asked this time for whatever, I have to speak frequently in order to be authorized to go to these meetings, and so people have been very gracious and allow me a microphone at these meetings. They have to listen to me. What can I say? But at this particular meeting, I was asked to talk a little bit about some pending federal legislation in the area to implement or provide additional oversight of regulatory agencies in light of the North Carolina FTC decision on teeth whitening. So we talked a little bit about that. The next thing I attended was right immediately after the EO forum. I serve as the regulator representative on the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy Pharmacy Steering or Executive Committee. I think that's what it's called. And normally we have quarterly meetings, but this particular meeting is in person once a year. And here we talked about the direction of where the .pharmacy program's going. .pharmacy is called a top-level domain, which means that instead of .farm or .com or .net, it's .pharmacy. The goal is to help people that use the internet as a means for buying their drugs to know that this site is compliant with California, in this case, national law. 97% of the 10,000 sites NABP looks at are not compliant. They either don't require a prescription, there's some reason to be concerned about the quality of the drugs you get. So this is a way to help authenticate that you're dealing with legitimate pharmacies when you buy online. So they're developing similar programs in the .bank, .realtor for those specific kinds of specialties to again provide some verification to the patient or to the user that they're dealing with legitimate sites. And
will it include outside U.S. or just U.S.?
There is an outside contingent, but there is limited ability to buy from outside the U.S. The FDA kind of allows it to occur if it's for personal use, but again, there's a lot of concerns if you go online, and we have submitted comments to the I think it was the FTC. I'm not sure who we submit. Well, actually, to Congress on the concern of authorizing patients to go onto the internet to buy drugs is dangerous. So,
thank you.
Probably more than you needed, but I got going. Recently, I was able to participate in a meeting that the Department of Public Health convened to deal with the opioid issues. The Department of Public Health is one of the recognized lead agencies for this, and they had members of the CDC come out and present information. The medical board's executive officer and myself were both invited to attend this meeting. It was a small group, and we heard from the CDC some of the grant money that they're providing to the Department of Public Health to provide naloxone, for example, in California, and how they're rolling that out, and some other issues dealing with the opioid crisis. So we are trying to stay engaged very much at various levels in this area because we're at ground zero with respect to the opioid crisis. It's our dispensers that are providing the medications to patients. We have an obligation to be heavily involved. So I was grateful for the opportunity to do that. And then last weekend I was able to attend the American Society of Pharmacy Law, which is a group of pharmacist attorneys that talk about various issues involving pharmacy law and where things are going. It was a 4-day meeting, and I was grateful to attend that. They did not have to hear me speak at this one. A reprieve. So, are there any questions about what I've been up to in this area? Well, I get a little travel in. What can I say? Okay. Recently, one of the things we also did was we provided training to our inspectors in the area of appropriate prescribing. And while we were providing the training to our inspectors, we decided to open it up to other Healing Arts Board's investigators as well. So we had investigators from the Division of Investigation that investigate cases involving other prescribing boards, including the Medical Board and the Optometric Board. The Dental Board was in the room. We had various investigators, and the goal was we all heard an update on what appropriate opioid prescribing could look like, and that was provided by Scott Fishman, who we're very grateful for providing us 2.5 hours, or probably closer to 3 hours, of training. So we were grateful for that. And what else we got going on here? Last night, actually, well, we speak right now, in San Diego, there is a 2-day opioid program being provided through the auspices of various federal agencies. The Department of Public Health has a hand in it, and we have a small role. Last night, we provided training with our CE program. This one was a 3-hour program on appropriate dispensing, corresponding responsibility, and we also provided naloxone training. We know that we had about 175 people there last night. We have about 2/3 of them, or pretty much all of them, I guess, about 150 of them, not all of them, but 150 of them took an additional hour of CE so they could be trained in administering naloxone. We also have provided training to pharmacists on August 26th in Sacramento and October 21st in Los Angeles, where we had a total of about another almost 300 people that were trained in various aspects of opioid abuse and prevention. And then we had another almost 250 people that were trained specifically in the 1 hour for naloxone administration. So we are very busy doing that. We have another session scheduled in San Francisco on the 27th of January. We're going to release the information for registration probably next week. We expect to have standing room only for these two. So, any comments?
Oh, I've got a comment.
Okay.
You talked about the training for the board inspectors for what appropriate opiate prescribing should look like. Is there any information that was in that should be transmitted to the pharmacists through the script or something? Some information that can help them stay within limits. I feel oftentimes that the red flag warnings haven't been educated. The pharmacists don't know enough about documentation and red flag warnings. I wondered if there's anything in this that should be.
I think perhaps why don't we just ask Dr. Fishman if he'll write an article?
Oh, that's a great idea.
There's a thank you for him. A lifetime assignment. Okay, I will be happy to do that.
We have a board member who just came in. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? My name is Amjad Khan. I joined the board recently. I'm a partner at a law firm in Los Angeles, a trial boutique, Brown, Neri, Smith & Khan, and I teach law at UCLA.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay. All right, so we finished that one. All right, so as many of you are aware, there is some examination going on federally over how the regulation of various entities is being handled with respect to the DEA. And I think that I don't want to go, there's a lengthy report that I put in here where we're discussing this. I would encourage any of you that have not yet spent time either reading the Washington Post or the 60-minute article that was on to take a look at it, because it actually goes into detail a little bit of some of the difficulties regulators face in this area, and I think more is to follow. So I don't know. I think I just put a short description in here. We did advance notice. I don't want to belabor this because I'm not going to show 60 minutes in here now. But is there any questions or anything that people have in this particular area? There is a meeting scheduled in another month with the DEA, which I hope to be able to attend, and I may have additional information based on where they're going following that meeting.
You know, in the 60 Minutes report, it talked about the lack of enforcement power that the DEA had for major distributors for, I guess, issuing cease and desist orders. And so now, do we have that problem in California? What's the federal versus state situation on that?
Well, because we license wholesalers, and we're talking specifically wholesalers here,
Right.
We could go to court to attempt to shut down a major wholesaler if we found a problem. What we instead typically do is when we find a pharmacy that has been doing excessive sales, there is often a wholesaler that's been feeding that, or multiple wholesalers. Sometimes they will use secondary wholesalers and a number of them to keep the numbers down so it's harder to detect. In those cases, we tend to file accusations into formal discipline, and we have a number of cases where we've disciplined wholesalers, and we have additional ones that are pending as we speak. Because as we see, much like when a prescriber overprescribes, there's a pharmacy that fills them. When a pharmacy over dispenses, there's a wholesaler or wholesalers that are feeding those drugs to the pharmacy. And so there's a corresponding link for that. We have now the authority to get the suspicious orders of sales from wholesalers that they have to report to the DEA. One of the statutory amendments we received was that one. So we've actually already had a meeting with one of the wholesalers on that particular attribute. And I'm working with the Large Wholesaler Association on making sure that we get the reports and that we understand what's in there and how to use them most efficiently.
Is there any established criteria to determine what is suspicious?
There is, that's left in the eye. It's kind of like pornography, you know, when you see it.
Right.
They're leaving it up to the wholesaler to identify what's reported. The concern is, are they reporting that?
Mhm.
And so we have various ways of getting at that. We have specific statutory authority where we can request the wholesalers to provide us data on drugs subject to abuse, and we do that periodically. We have triggered a number of investigations based on something we did about 3 years ago. So the answer is we're involved. We don't use a lot of interim suspension orders against drug wholesalers, but we have other enforcement tools, and we do cite and fine them too. But we have pending, after that report, I pulled a bunch of reports, and we have a number of disciplinary actions either pending or secured against wholesalers based on their sales. Okay, I've been prompted. Hurry up. I think everyone in this room is probably pretty much aware that we recently had a problem with wildfires throughout the state. I am pleased to announce that because we have done enough positioning in this area, we had a subscriber alert that went out immediately. We alerted pharmacies what we expected them to do if they had to relocate or take care of patients that had been displaced because of this. We are only aware of 3 pharmacies that had to relocate because of the fire. We were not notified that any pharmacy had been destroyed. That doesn't mean it didn't happen, but we just were not notified. So the pharmacies that we allowed to relocate to take care of patients, I believe, have all gone back to their original site. We did have one that was damaged with a roofing issue with water or something, but I'm pleased to say that worked. I think one of the things we're going to do with the Communication and Public Ed Committee is to look at the materials we release when we have a declared emergency to make sure we're up to date, and then to make sure that we have it available on our website so people can get to it and kind of make plans so they know how to take care of patients. But we had one pharmacy, for example, relocated from Santa Rosa to the Dixon Mayfair, which is in Dixon, which is actually, as the crow flies, not that far. As the roads go, it's quite a trek. So we're aware that that occurred, and then we had a number of media outlets that just wanted to know what to tell patients, how to get their medication, and so that was pretty straightforward. So the better we get at educating our licensees, the better it's going to be for the public when they need to obtain medication due to a relocation caused by a natural or an unnatural disaster. And then finally, we have a personnel update. I'm pleased to announce that all of our supervisor positions, except for one, have been filled, and that is a manager in the licensing unit, which we're seeking to fill. We have all of our inspector positions filled. We just hired 3 individuals who are being trained as we speak. Let me rephrase that. We actually have 5 new inspectors. We're very busy. We now have a total of 51 inspectors working for the board, and a number of managers. We've actually listed who we're recruiting for at the current time, and then the recent promotions that we've had. So that concludes my report.
Okay, any questions from my board members? No?
Finally, it's over. Was that what that was? Thank God.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ginny. Now that we have MJ in, so thank you, MJ. So we have established a quorum. Now we could go back to agenda item number 3. That's the July 25th and 26th board meetings minutes. Board members, do you have any corrections or amendment on that minutes?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Greg. Need a second? Second by Alan. And all those in favor, please raise your hand. Oppose? Abstained?
I'm going to abstain because I was only there for one of the 2 days, so I don't want to. I
Okay.
can't speak.
So 1 abstention by Debbie. And the minutes is approved. Agenda item number 4. The minutes on September 19, teleconference board meetings minutes. Board members, any corrections or amendment?
Motion to approve.
I'll
Motion
second.
by Greg,
I'll second.
second by Debbie. And all those in favor, please raise your hand. Oppose? Abstain? And minutes is approved. And agenda item number 5, the September 28, 2017 board meetings minutes. Board members, any corrections or amendments? Yes, Debbie?
There is one correction. Board members present does not list my name at the top. Later in, when we do roll call, I'm listed, but at the top, I need to be added.
Okay, corrections?
Yeah, this is September 28th at Loma Linda.
Yes, thank you, Debbie.
We need to ask for public comment on.
Oh, okay. I was just reminded I forgot to ask for public comments. So any public comments on the above items that we discussed so far? And the minutes? Any corrections? And if you do, please come up and say something, okay? Thank you.
On this one, let's motion to approve as corrected.
Okay, motion by Greg to approve the minutes as amended.
And I'll second.
Second by Debbie. And all those in favor, please raise your hand. Oppose? Abstain? Abstain. Okay, Albert was absent, so MJ was absent too? Okay. Okay, two abstention. And the minutes is approved. Thank you. If that's the case, Jenny. Okay, and that's the case, then let's move on to the report by Communication and Public Education Committee. Committee Chair, Mr. Ricardo Sanchez.
Yes, thank you. This is the report for the Communication and Public Education Committee, It was held September 20th, 2017. A copy of the meetings are in your packet, so you guys can see. Can you hear me? Try this one. Can you hear me now? All right, I'll move over. There you go. Problem. Discussion and consideration of proposal by Chapman University School of Pharmacy group to require warning label on prescription containers for chemotherapy medications. A little background on that. At the March 2017 Communication and Public Education Committee meeting, the committee heard a presentation from a group of Chapman University pharmacy students on the safe and proper disposal of oral chemotherapy drugs. The group proposed a standardized hazard symbol be placed on prescription labels for NIOSH designated hazardous drugs. The committee supported the students' efforts to educate pharmacists on the topic and advised the group to draft an article for publication in the board's newsletter regarding the topic. And they came and gave us an update of some of their research, and Dr. Wong and Dr. Yang reported to the committee the Chapman Group is working to educate pharmacists, drug manufacturers, and other stakeholders about safe handling and disposal of oral chemotherapy. As an update, they actually put an article together and submitted by the group, the Chapman Group, published in October 2017 issue of the script. So it's there for your viewing. So thank you to them. Board staff will be developing a subscriber alert to send to licensees, providing a reminder on this topic as well as access to the article and the script. Any questions from the board members? Nope. Public? Nope.
Ricardo, I just want to say that they have some preliminary data that indicates that patients aren't getting information about how to appropriately handle their medications for chemo. And so I think that they brought home to the committee that we need to do some education in this area to our licensees. And so expect to see some subscriber alerts and possibly another newsletter article on this area, because patients won't necessarily know this information. The prescribers and the dispensers apparently aren't adequately discussing it. So we need to kind of step up here and help educate our licensees as well as the public.
Yeah, and again, they did a great presentation, and they published their information also in the script, and it's there to you by anybody.
I think, kind of maybe the guidance we'd like to hear from the board is what we were wrestling. Do we want to make this a law to require the sticker on the bottle when it's a chemotherapeutic agent? Or do we want to leave it at the discretion and work on education of the pharmacists, and the industry? I mean, maybe it's my opinion, but I was thinking kind of the board was kind of leaning towards, let's try education and promotion first before we, make a regulation about requiring a sticker. Because the other part about the sticker is that symbol, not a lot of people knew about. I think, like, if you're a chemo person, you're like going, oh, absolutely, that's a hazardous chemo sticker. But it seemed to me at our meeting that a lot of education needed to happen before we just slam a
Well, they were doing the research, obviously, and they're putting a paper together here to publish in our script, and they did. We just got it published October.
Right.
Okay? So I think maybe the board's wishes here is let's see how that settles with the pharmaceutical industry.
Well, I think that
out
was
there.
the wish of our committee. I just thought we wanted to ask the board if they agreed with kind of the direction we were going, because for sure the university wanted to make a regulation. There's no doubt
absolutely.
they wanted a regulation. They wanted to change, they wanted to add to the label. And I think I'm just thinking,
Oh.
as a committee, does the rest of the board members agree with the direction that our committee took?
Any opinion from the board?
Oh, I agree. I would agree with Debbie. I think education is the first step on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than regulation.
Right.
And honestly, I think we need more than just in the script, but I think that's what we kind of need to help challenge them and challenge ourselves what we need to do. But
Well, it's something we can work on as a committee and find out what would best get the message across and get back to the board here and make a recommendation.
Well, and the committee did direct some subscriber alerts too, which won't be quite, those are just like quick hits. And a lot of people, because there's so many recalls, just probably fly through them. But I think that it's something that we can develop something for, and awareness is the first step. So,
Any more questions or any input from the board? Public? Okay, we'll move on to discussion and consideration of a proposal for public service billboard message and related communication material on drug abuse. A little background: at the October 2016 board meeting, the board approved a billboard message. Unattended prescription drugs are the leading killer of kids. That was donated by committee member Ryan Brooks from Outfront Media. Since the October 2016 board meeting, the executive officer and public information officer have been concurrently working with a task force of state agencies on opiate abuse prevention. We discussed it in our committee, and our committee, we had the be aware, don't share, lock your meds. We had some, sayings that we wanted to put up on the board. The committee recommendations were to move forward with a new campaign for the billboard project, develop a theme similar to the be aware, don't share, lock your meds, sample provided with the board's website added. They authorized the committee chairperson and executive officer to work with the Outfront Media and present the new campaign at the board meeting in November. And we have a sample of those. You can pass those out.
they've been passed
Oh,
out.
they've been passed out. You should all have them here for the board members. And take a look at those. And one that stood out with some of these recommendations was the Your Meds, where is it at?
Number 2.
Number 2, yeah. Use, don't abuse, safely dispose of unused medication, stop prescription drug abuse. And it would have the website of the pharmaceutical board to direct anybody to get further information. And from there, we would provide not only the information, but hopefully resources for anybody to get help. Any questions for the board members?
so I'm trying to find what be aware, don't share, lock your meds. That little wording that I think we kind of all liked on that day. I don't see that as one of these. Is
Yeah,
there-
it's not because if I'm correct, they were charging us for that, and we couldn't use those kind of words. And we're trying to be original about this whole thing. We originally had another slogan that wasn't accurate, wasn't factual. Like it causes the most deaths, which wasn't factual. And we're definitely wanting to put just the facts up there and be truthful with the public, obviously. And so we decided to go with this slogan here, and wanted to get your opinion for the board.
Use, don't abuse.
The board's general gist of where it was going at the last meeting where we really discussed this was they wanted something to address the issue of kids accessing the parents or someone else's meds. So warning about kids, educate your kids about it, and don't leave the drugs around. So the use, don't abuse is kind of fitting in that goal. And
I
so,
like the when a vial becomes vile with the photo.
I do too.
With the photo of the teen reaching into the med cabinet.
it's very clever. The only thing is that takes a lot of words to do that. And we had an issue where on a billboard, your space is a premium, and there's a limit to how many words you dare put up
I
there.
think the words use and abuse have been so overused that people don't pay attention to it.
So you like vile becomes vile.
Absolutely. It's something
you know-
new and fresh.
I'm thinking if you're driving by, I actually like use, don't abuse. I mean, you need it to, part of it, what we found in the committee was the picture that went with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think, because I'm thinking vile, not everyone's going to get it.
Well, yeah, but I think it causes somebody to stop and think. Use and don't abuse is just overused.
And the one thing that the donor of the billboards, who's donating them to the state, 5 of them, 2 in the south, 2 in the north, 1 in the valley, said basically, it's bureaucracy here. We've been on this for over a year. He's donated these billboards to us. Let's get off the dime. Let's come up with something and put those signs up on the freeway, and let's start saving lives or giving the public an ability to get information. So that keeping with that, even though you have a selection here, we try to narrow that down so we can just get this done and get the message across and hopefully save some lives.
I mean, you can't fault use, don't abuse as far as. I'm just thinking that it just doesn't have the impact I'd like to see.
I would do like a wild thing instead of an accountant and a pharmacist here trying to figure out what the right words are. What does the marketing people say?
This was originated from a marketing person who
But
used
where
to have
does
it.
all
All of these came from someone independent outside the bureaucracy and had done research in the area just to come up with these slogans. So these are fresh, and she was not contaminated by seeing what we were looking at prior to this.
Yeah, professional work, and I might add free to the state. So that was good.
And free.
So do we need to take a vote on it? Anybody
Well,
suggest?
it was for discussion here for all of us to look at these slogans and then see what you guys like and.
Yeah, I just think
But I
something
think
stronger like abuse means death.
Well, it is death.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's stronger. Use, don't abuse just isn't strong.
Well, I kind of like the committee recommendation, and maybe we take out the specific slogan since we can't use it. But our recommendation was that we allowed our committee chair and the executive officer to work with Outfront Media to kind of put together a billboard.
Use their expertise to refine where we go. Okay, we can do that.
And that's I'm kind of changing our recommendation, Ricardo, but it's because of what you came up with, so we could make it a motion and second it.
Well, let me get my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, let's
here.
hear from everybody.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let's go, Alan.
Yeah. Well, while it doesn't have a good alliterative run to it, your dose, someone else's dependence. That is a thought that a parent could relate to there, and it causes more awareness. Because I think oftentimes you're not realizing that your prescription is going to be someone else's downfall. And so, while I like the idea, I don't particularly like the phrasing there. But
I like that idea, but look at number 1. Then, if you want to go that route, be the cure, not the culprit.
That's too complicated.
Yeah.
That's too complicated.
You want to get someone's attention, and you direct them to get some help, and that's why we wanted to present these to you. But we'd like to get something done, though. There was another one that says, "Show you care, secure and dispose of your meds." Show don't share. Just there's a bunch of little slogans, but we definitely need to move on something.
Yeah.
Because the individual who donated these 5 billboards for free would like to see them up.
So I'd like
it's
to.
been over a year, and we've
So with the board.
we've been going back and forth. But I don't know. Let's.
I'd like to
let's
make a
brainstorm
motion.
this.
All right, here we go.
Hold on. We may have opinions
Yeah,
here, too.
we
Go
have
ahead.
public-
I just maybe what we can do is we should have a consensus on what we don't like.
Oh,
Just-
that's a good idea to eliminate them.
So why don't we do that? I mean, the ones that I think I don't like are the ones that are going to take a couple steps to understand.
Yes.
I think the be the cure, not the culprit is complex, but that's just my take.
I think don't play doctor means nothing.
Well,
I
that
wanted to mention that.
I think the first one. We want to start with the first one. Does anyone have strong feelings that that's a good one? The first one.
Let's open it up to the public so they can hear too.
Public.
All right, public comment.
Here's
Bob. Oh, good.
Here's what it actually says. Be the cure, not the culprit. Stop prescription drug abuse. Safely secure your medications. A message from the California State Board of Pharmacy.
And just for the
Too much.
public's benefit, there are copies of these in the back of the room near the sign-in table. So
Go ahead.
Hi, Robert Stein from KGI School of Pharmacy. Attachment 3 of the materials actually has a bulletin board with verbiage that really hits, I think, some of the issues that everyone's concerned with. And it says, unattended prescription drugs are the leading killer of kids in really bright.
That isn't accurate.
That's
Oh,
not
it isn't?
factual.
Ah, okay.
That's a problem.
It isn't the leading killer.
No, car accidents are.
Second.
Yeah, I don't think we want to go there, but thank you.
Okay.
Well, you could go to kill kids as opposed to the biggest killer of kids.
I think that's kind of a negative message, and
Yeah, it is.
well, the goal is to not scare, but to focus. And we had a lengthy discussion during the last meeting of the Communication Public Ed Committee, following a discussion that we had with PR folks that developed these things, and their goal was to educate and uplift, but don't scare.
Has anybody done any kind of a focus group on what impact these different things?
Well, we didn't run an impact. We're using this meeting as an opportunity for a focus group, because again, everyone's going to
need kids in the focus group.
Well, part of the issue is everyone in here is going to have a different opinion of which way it goes, and so at some point, as Mr. Sanchez says, we're going to have to figure out. We're just going to have to go our own way.
This board also
Understood.
voted to give Jenny and myself the authority to pick it. Okay, to pick the slogan.
Which
we
one
went
do you
back to the
like?
committee.
Actually,
Which one would you pick?
No, it was our committee that recommended you, so that's why I was going to change it.
Ricardo?
I was going to make a motion.
Which one
to-
would you pick?
No, I'll tell you right now.
We gave you the authority. Which one would you pick?
It's simple. I'm with John here. It's use, don't abuse. I do like that one, but
okay.
Add
Again-
the word "but" on it. Use but don't abuse.
You don't want to sound corny either, you know. Don't play doctor, you know, something like that. Or
Yeah.
the other one that we proposed, you know, watch grandmother or something, you know, throwing grandmother under the bus type deal. We can't go with things like that.
I mean, I think you guys, I don't think today we're going to decide the slogan. I think that Amjad's idea of let's go through what we don't like, and then I think we need to give it to Ricardo and Jenny to work with the media group and figure it out, because otherwise we're going to be
Okay.
here for hours
All right.
playing.
So number one, we don't like, but we need to hear from others.
Okay.
Public comment.
Danny Martinez with CPHA. I mentioned this at the last Communication Public Education Committee hearing. CPHA is absolutely supportive of any message that does save lives, because obviously abuse is a problem. What I had mentioned last time, and Mr. Brooks and I kind of got into a little bit of a back and forth, is there's already, I feel like there's a proliferation of signs already on the highway for different causes. So the less you can get, the less you can put on the billboard with the most meaning, something that we would vehemently support, because what we don't want is for drivers to take their eyes off the roads for too long a period of time. And
Good point.
And so I just want to reiterate that for the full board to hear. I don't know that we endorse or support any one of these over the other, just as long as, like I said, it's simple and easy for the driver to understand and look at the sign, understand it, okay, keep driving, and then at some point down the road remember what it actually says.
One thing I'd like to assure the board that regardless of whatever one we select, we will rely upon Ryan's firm to kind of help guide us a little bit in terms of what's appropriate, what's not going to work, that kind of thing, to protect us.
Here's something real simple. Abuse kills.
Again, getting a little negative and a little scary there, Greg.
They're not making another year.
Okay, go ahead.
Nikki Van Kirk, a pharmacy technician. I believe that
You need to move a little closer to the
Yes,
microphone. We
speak
can't
a
hear
little
you. Sorry.
closer to the microphone.
Nikki Van Kirk, pharmacy technician. I believe that all of these, except for Don't Play Doctor, is just a little bit too advanced to be understood across the state of California from my experiences in the outpatient and inpatient. Don't Play Doctor is just kind of simple and perfect, easy to understand right off just looking at it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's. I'm gonna have a great
Ricardo, I like the one that use but don't abuse.
Well, there's 3 votes.
Use but
I think
don't abuse.
I think let's continue down. I like his
Let's
idea. So
John
we
had a great idea. Let's go with the ones we don't like. Okay, how's about let's do a vote of hands. Be the cure, not the culprit. Stop prescription drug abuse.
said no.
We said no.
To that one, right?
Yes.
Everybody's cool with that? Okay, well, let's knock that one out. What about use, don't abuse?
That one's worth consideration.
I think
Okay, we keep that one.
Yeah,
I like
keep
that.
that
You
one.
guys
Okay,
like
we've
it.
got raise your right hand. How's that? See, if you think that use, don't abuse would be a good
I'm voting.
I like that one.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
I like
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
6. That's good. Okay, we're moving.
Okay, we gotta quit while we're
I had
ahead.
a great
Okay.
idea here. Your meds, no one else's. Stop prescription drug abuse. Take what you need. Safe.
I
Huh?
think that one's worth. I think that
What?
one's worth keeping.
I think it's worth keeping too.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay. Well, I was going to just
Don't waste
for the
any more
public's
time.
benefit. I was going to read it out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Here.
So
That
keep
was
that one.
your
He
meds,
just
no
wants
one
to move on.
else's. Stop prescription drug abuse. Take what you need. Safely dispose the rest. Board.
Yeah,
That's
keep that one.
the only thing is that, like Danny said, to read all of that, your eyes are off the road too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Too
just
much.
run into somebody. Okay.
Yeah. So
Well, just for the sake here, how many say yes here?
Yeah, just
Raise
it's
your right
okay.
hand.
It's okay.
You guys like it? One.
The
Two,
your
three.
meds, no one else's. I like that.
3.
Meds, no one else. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.
I like it if that's all that's on the board.
Okay.
is
Well, we're
I
gonna
mean-
circle
meds,
those two.
no
So
one
we've
else.
got 2 of them. We got 5 there. Okay. Take your prescription. Properly toss the rest. Talk to your kids about prescription drug
Oh.
abuse.
Long.
A little too.
It's
you-
too
It's a little
much.
too long, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Josh,
great.
Josh. Oh, you like that one?
I kind of I like the way
That's
it
'cause you're a
lines
lawyer.
up graphically. It's kind of interesting the way they did it. Okay, so that's a no.
That's a no. 'Cause that's a
No.
1. Okay. Don't play doctor. Stop prescription drug abuse. Never share your medication.
No.
That's a little too corny. Let's see. When a vial becomes vile, and a photo of a teen reaching into a medicine cabinet.
I like
Stop
it, but it's
prescription
probably
drug
too much.
abuse. Properly store your medication. Yay, nay.
I don't like
Nah.
it.
Okay, that's a no.
It'd be difficult for some people to understand.
That's right.
Okay, your dose, someone else's dependence. Stop prescription drug abuse. Properly store your medication. Nope. Yep. Okay. Okay, we're getting
Lot of
somewhere
words.
here. Save a life. Change your bedside manner. Nightstand with a pill bottle. Secure picture. Yeah, that's a no.
Too cute.
Okay, we're down to 2. We're down to 2 here. We're doing progress here. Okay.
Oh, dear.
Use, don't abuse. Safely dispose of unused medication. What's that?
There you go. There's
Exactly.
a
I've
consensus
added to
builder
those
right
ones.
there.
I just
I
want to
mean,
interject.
okay, so could I suggest instead of us just getting down to just one, why don't we let you run with those 2 and and a marketing group and
Okay.
kind of soft shoe it?
Well, hold on. Let's hear it.
I just had one pitch for the properly take your prescription, toss, and talk. I think that actually is pretty good because the take, toss, talk is really easy visually to see and understand. And,
Yeah.
and that's what we want, right? I mean, that's really the essence of it. It's clear. It's not hard to follow. And if it has a picture, it might even help. So I don't know. Maybe we keep that in the running. I don't know.
I also think that that's the kind of thing that could easily become a meme. You know, that could get
Take, toss, talk.
shared on social media.
But
or
it's
whatever,
only
What
it's only directed to the person taking the prescription. It not really directed to the effects on the kids that get it.
when they toss, they got tossed to the garbage can.
Talking to the parents.
But do you really
so
want to
they
toss the rest? I think we
rest.
want to take it to a dispensary, right? Somewhere we can
Well,
properly
we can take
just
that up with the drug take back people, I guess.
toss the rest, not out the window or something. You got to.
Actually, toss is a potential problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could just be take and talk.
TikTok. I like.
But so let's put that one back in. Can I make a motion?
Hold on, it's a discussion.
No, I can make a motion.
Go
My
ahead.
motion
What-
is
what-
that
what's
we
your
move
motion?
forward with a new campaign for the Billboard Project, developing a theme similar to the 3 that we've voted on here, which are use, don't abuse, your meds, no one else's, and something to the effect of take, toss, and talk.
Okay.
With the board website added, and we'll authorize our committee chair, Ricardo, and our executive officer, Virginia, to work out with Outfront Media and present the new campaign. No, just say you work it out. Period.
So are you taking just take, toss, and talk, or the top three?
No,
I'm taking the
Top three.
Use,
Don't
don't
use,
use.
don't-
Okay,
and
got it,
someone else,
okay.
And take toss
I
and
lost
toss.
you somewhere in the middle of your motion. I'm sorry.
Okay, motion by Debbie.
Number 2, 3, and 4.
Anybody second?
I'll second it.
A second by Greg. Okay. Any more discussions? Public comment?
Here's your
It-
chance.
It's a 2, 3, and 4, right?
Oh, sorry.
It's
Go ahead.
2, 3, and 4. You talk about 2, 3,
2,
and
3,
4.
and 4.
I thought I was the chairman. He's in the power. He's in the power.
Oh, Ricardo, go ahead.
I like that. We do definitely need to work on it. It just we definitely don't want to go another year of stretching this
No
out.
way.
No, actually now
Um,
this is on YouTube.
Ricardo, I have a question.
So much.
I have a question. Actually, now that we have 5 billboards, can you put different one instead of just one message for all 5? Is it possible you could do 3? I mean, if you have 3, you like
We
put.
could ask, but I don't know. We could ask.
I think we want one campaign message.
Yeah.
But they can
But
check it out.
again, we need to know who our audience is, because Take, Toss, Talk is strictly to the person that has the prescription. It's not to the person who could be a recipient of the meds.
Unless
So,
you toss them first.
I mean, use, don't abuse talks to the one who will be receiving it. Don't abuse it. The other one talks to the person who would give it. So I'm just a little concerned about the message just going to one party.
We will take the 3 recommendations,
Right.
and we will work with some of the
Out front.
professionals.
Mhm.
We'll refine that. We'll make sure it's proper. We'll talk to Brooks about
Right.
if that would be proper, and possibly change up a little bit. Right now nationally, obviously it's opiates is a big problem according to our president, and people are overdosing on prescription drugs, and it may be something that we can dovetail into from their campaigns too,
Yeah.
to get a certain message across. So anything that would obviously protect the public or give them an avenue to get help would also be very, very beneficial. So we have a motion, and we have a second. Any, Victor? We're gonna vote all those. Yeah, we have a motion. We have a second. All those in agreement, raise your right hand. For
Public.
They've
Uh,
already-
we've already spoken.
Okay, that's no more public comment. Okay,
Any more public comment?
no more. Okay. Let's call for the vote. Right.
Raise your right hand if you're okay with the motion. And the second.
Well,
Okay. Got it.
break.
You want to take a
All
break?
right,
Could we
Ricardo,
take a
have 5-minute break?
5 minutes break?
Let me
Thank
think
you,
about that.
Ricardo.
Of course, make it 10. How's that?
Okay,
10 minutes.
let's take a 5 minutes break, and we'll be right back. The board is back in session, so we go back to the public ed committee report. Okay, Mr. Sanchez,
I think we need. I'm John here, right? To have a forum.
for action item only. Go ahead.
We're good. Okay. Tough. I was still stuck. The use don't abuse thing here. Billboard. So see if I can catch up here. Okay, here it is. Okay. Discussion and consideration of safe medication transportation for patients upon discharge from health care facilities, consumer and pharmacist educational opportunities, and any necessary statutory or regulatory changes. A little background: at the July 2017 board meeting, the board heard a presentation by Dr. Rita Shane titled "Safe Medication Transitions: Evidence-Based Solutions." The board directed the committee to discuss materials and tools that could be developed to educate both consumers and pharmacists about the importance of maintaining and conveying a medication history to healthcare providers during hospital admission. A copy of Dr. Shane's presentation is in attachment 4. You guys will have that. And committee discussion and actions on that is the committee considered the possibility of a smartphone app to store medication history, but also acknowledged that some consumers don't use smartphones. Members also noted that many hospitals are working on similar discharge medication programs. Staff pointed out that the board currently provides small cards that consumers can use to write and carry a list of their medications. So the pharmaceutical state board, we have the little cards and can make those available to the public. The committee directed staff to research existing phone apps and hard forms that could be used and report back to the committee.
We'll do that the next committee, yes.
And we will do that at the next
Although we did do,
committee.
although we did do some research. I'm not sure. Frankly, that it looks like there are phone apps out there right now to do this. So maybe kind of push patients to find what's already available and keep us out of the middle of the development, which isn't really our forte, probably anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Ricardo, as I recall, I mean, I think the committee really loved this idea.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, Jenny, we didn't want to create a new wheel because the wheel's already there.
Right.
And just try to figure out things we could embrace and, like our committee, communicate and educate about, other ways to, opportunities for the public. And, I know we even talked about on the phone, like there might be like an emergency place in a lot of phones, and
There's a lot of apps that you can go
Yeah.
on and get one and so forth. And but again, we also discussed that not everybody has a phone.
yeah.
And the pharmaceutical board, we do have the little cards that could be a substitute for that. So
When someone was talking about like on the iPhone, there's like a little emergency thing, and so it might just be educating people how to get to that, because it sounds like a couple people testified that a lot of the emergency folks know about that and they would access it. But if you don't put anything on there, it's worthless.
yeah, that Hex phone's a little hard to get these days, though. But again, not everybody has the phones. Any more opinion or any input from any of the board members?
I'm just looking. I just looking at my phone. Not that I've ever done that during a meeting before, but but I just put in prescription drug list app, and about 25 of them come up here. So they're out there.
Plenty there.
There's plenty there. Yeah.
I just put a list in my phone directory and that's it. I just put it in myself.
Yeah, they're just having options for the public, general public. Not everybody, like we discussed, has a phone or has the ability to, look things up or put an icon on there that'll give them all the information. So, like Jenny said, we'll get back to that and we'll discuss that in future. I'll move on here. Oh, public comment. Any input from the public on any applications? No. Okay. We'll move on. Discussion and consideration of materials regarding drug take-back collection receptacles and providing public access to such information. Background on that is at the July 2017 board meeting, we received a summary of an audit by the State Auditor Agency on home-generated sharps and pharmaceutical waste services. The committee was directed by the board to discuss possible materials and tools to educate consumers about how to access drug take-back programs to dispose of unused medications. A copy of the audit is in summary 5. You guys have access to that. Committee decisions and actions. Staff updated the committee that online forms are being developed to allow pharmacists to register collection receptacles with the board. Addresses of collection receptacles will be posted on the board's website in a format that consumers can search by zip code. Staff also is developing a wallet-sized information card for consumers explaining how to dispose of unused drugs safely and how to access take-home programs. Committee members requested that printed materials be translated into multiple languages for consumers and that online information be easy to find on the board's website. The committee also directed staff to return with recommendations on how to help consumers better navigate the board's website. And any on the recommendations with staff? Tick tock, tick tock. No.
We are in the process. We've got a form that's now a formal form that's set up to be able to collect information from licensees. It will have a zip code search function. We are going to do a voluntary one for mail back envelopes so that we have the ability to alert people where they can go get those if they want to use those instead of searching out a collection receptacle. Those, I believe they said by March, you said, or by February? End of January. Well, I was pushing even further back. Okay. Meanwhile, if you've already turned in where your collection receptacle is, we have the information. We just are trying to develop a computer application that will directly put it into the system so that or at least more directly, so that people can use the search features based on either street address or the county or the zip code. So the goal is to make the information more available to people. And the other thing is one of the things I just wrote down a minute ago is that I want to make sure that we go ahead and do some public outreach materials in this area. It doesn't have to be extensive, but we do need to put some information out that's available to the public.
And our website, make it easy for the public to access it, and also pharmacists, so they can research some of this. And also, it goes along with our billboards. We're directing them to our website, and this should be easily accessible. So we'll follow up on that. Any questions from the public? Once, twice? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Discussion and consideration of requests to use non-board versions of naloxone fact sheet and notice to consumers. Going to the background here. At the March 2017 committee meeting, staff presented a request from a pharmacy to use its own version of the naloxone fact sheet. Additionally, the executive officer received a pharmacy request to use its own version of the notice to consumers. Copies of the board's and non-board versions of the naloxone fact sheet and notice to consumers are in attachment 6 that you all have a copy of. Committee discussion and action. At the committee 2017 committee meeting, Ms. Harold Jenny informed the committee that she had invited a group of public information officers to review and compare the effectiveness and readability of the board and non-board versions of both the naloxone fact sheet and the notice to consumers. She said the group recommended not approving the non-board version for use. Specifically, the group found that non-board version of the naloxone fact sheet was too dense and the print was too small and difficult to read. They also said the format made it hard to read in an emergency. And that's when you need it the most. The group noted that the non-board version of the NTC does not follow the wording of the board's version, and it uses the board logo on the non-board material. The group also preferred the yellow and red coloring of the board's version to the light blue of the non-board version and expressed concern that the non-board version merged the NTC information with a point to your language information. Ms. Harold indicated her recommendation would be to not approve the non-board versions of the naloxone fact sheet nor the NTC for use. The committee agreed. In addition, members recommended changing the CCR sections 1707.6 subsection A and C to authorize the executive officer or the committee to approve substantially similar version of the notice to consumer text for use by individual pharmacists. Committee recommendation based on the executive officer's recommendation and review of the samples, the committee does not recommend approving the use of the non-board versions of the naloxone fact sheet or the notice to the consumers. Questions, board members? Public? Questions? Okay.
I think we need a vote.
our motion. You can just call for the vote, but that's our motion.
To accept it? Okay.
Basically, yes, because it's been submitted to us to allow them to do it, so there needs to be a response back.
Okay. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Oh, second. Oh, wait.
Favor to
Of the-
not recommend.
Not approve it.
approving the substitute materials.
You're adopting the committee's recommendation.
Adopt the committee recommendation.
I'll move on. Discussion and consideration of the national. Go ahead.
We have a second motion. They were gonna change, we wanted to change CCR.
Oh, yeah, hold on. Committee recommendation also was a change CCR 1707.6 A and C subsections to authorize the executive officer or the committee to approve substantially similar notice to consumers' text for individual pharmacies. Discussion for
Yeah, I
board?
was just gonna say, just like we do today, where we allow our executive officer to look at the notice consumer video loop, and we've given flexibility in her the power to look at it, make sure it all matches up. These pharmacies brought these naloxone and notice consumer ideas, and it's not that we're opposed to different formats. It's just that it needs to match with what we have in statute and regulation. And so the committee wanted to, instead of having this go through the committee each and every time, we wanted to give the executive officer the ability so that companies, individual pharmacies, whatever, could potentially have variations or have their format as long as it matches what the regulation and the regulation or statute says. And today, she does not have the authority, our executive officer does not have the authority to approve it. It has to come before the committee.
Why do they need to use something different than our fact sheet? I mean,
Well, it's just like with the video loop. I mean, there might be other ways of doing it, and gosh, we're smart people, but there could be variations that would be equally beneficial to the consumer, and so we don't want to limit anybody from having the opportunity to explore that, as long as it fits the box, it meets the need.
My criteria was it had to be as good as, if not better than ours, which would then make us be a little more efficient, a little more proficient in what we do. A little bit of competition is probably not a bad thing, but if it was not an improvement over what we had, my inclination is that no.
it seems like it could be a source of revenue for us to sell our fact sheet.
Well, the only problem is it's on the website and
already.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
Greg,
how
it's
much
on the
more we wanna
website
go down
free
that
today,
road.
so there's nothing we're selling.
Okay.
Now we could make like
careful.
an application fee and put in Jenny's expert. No, I'm kidding.
Any more comments from
Bad
the
idea.
board?
Bad idea.
No? Public comment? Nobody wants to talk to me on my stuff. I'm just joking.
Well,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You're explaining it so
It's
well.
fine. It's fine.
So we can even vote.
Okay. Well, the committee recommendation obviously is to change CCR 1707.6 subsection A and C to authorize the executive officer, Jenny, or the committee to approve substantially similar notice to consumers next to individual pharmacies. Those support of that change, please raise your right hand.
Don't raise that left hand because
You
he won't
you
count.
can raise either hand; it'll still count.
For Alan, it's okay to raise the left. No.
Yeah, because Victor had his left arm up.
Okay, we'll move on. Discussion and consideration of the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, NABP, report on Internet Drug Outlet Identification Program progress report for state and federal regulators, August 2017. Background, for the committee's information, staff provided a report issued by the National Association of Board of Pharmacy that investigated 108 so-called Canadian pharmacy websites. NABP found that 74% obtained their drugs from outside Canada, and half of the websites got the medications from India or other countries. In addition, none of the websites required consumers to submit a valid prescription. A copy of the report is in attachment 7. It's available to all of you. Committee discussion and action. The committee discussed the board's active participation in the creation and development of pharmacy as a top level domain operated by NABP for use by approved pharmacy websites. The committee agreed this is very important information because many consumers fall victim to false internet pharmacies. Those of you who've gone to the internet know they offer you everything. So I'll open that up for discussion. Any input on that?
I just keep throwing my 2 cents in, but I mean, that pharmacy that NABP has put together, Jenny, I think you've been very involved in that, and I think
I've
you
been
mentioned
lucky
it
to be
earlier
able
in your,
to do it. Yeah.
yeah, your executive report. So we appreciate, because that pharmacy has been, I think, a very positive.
I think it's where we're going in the future, and I think that if patients want to use it, at least they can choose wisely, because otherwise you can't tell legitimate from illegitimate sites. Some of the most illegitimate, you can't identify that there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
Any tool that we can use to help the public,
Right.
to be safe or warn of bad med out there.
Well, like everything else, you don't know what you don't know sometimes.
So what's our action item to support
There is-
the
there
use
is
That
of
was just
this?
There's nothing
committee
for
information is all it was.
Because it says an action, so I was wondering what that was.
Well,
We don't have one.
We don't have one.
Okay.
Here, take your pen. Just not that one. Okay. Any public input? Any questions on the Canadian other prescriptions out there? No. Okay. Okay, we'll move on then. Update and discussion of communication and public education activity by board staff. Staff updated the committee on work performance according to communication plan for consumers and licensees. The committee originally approved the plan at its March 2017 meeting. A copy of the plan is on your attachment 8. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but they're there for you to look at. And if you have any questions, ask them. The script, staff updated the committee on publication of the script newsletter, which was published the second week of October. The newsletter can be viewed online or at the www.pharmacy.cal.gov publications/17 and so forth. You can read it from your our website.
Oh, before you go on, I just want to make sure with the script, it goes out to every pharmacist in the state that is registered with us, because they all have to be registered
right.
with
We
us.
have a subscriber alert system, and it goes out to the pharmacists. It'll go out to the subscriber list, and it'll go out to the interns. It'll go to everybody pretty much, and that's part of the advantage of having the email list.
Right. Now, sometimes I'm afraid everybody doesn't read it as completely as they should.
Do you have something you'd like to propose to get them to read?
No. I wondered if sometime we should put some form of communication on the script that we anticipate that pharmacists will read this, to emphasize the importance of what we communicate, because a lot of the laws go out in there, a lot of the anticipation of what we expect to see during inspections. I mean, there's valuable information in there, and I think if we put something on there that we expected the pharmacists to read this, it might give a little more punch.
Okay, we can try that.
You're talking about like on the cover email, because I'm thinking if you put something in the script and they're not reading it, they'll
yes, you're correct. Yeah.
Well, and we'll keep in mind too that we now have a requirement that we get these email addresses. We're
Right.
not sure who's actually in there because we don't have Alan Shad equals pharmacist in SAC as the website or as the email address. So we're never going to be able to tie it directly. But we do find that when we go out to inspect pharmacies, periodically you come across someone that doesn't know that there's specific requirements that they need to fulfill when it's been fully described in the newsletter. So I think that's something we can continue to drive home. I think that's a good reminder.
What this is would this be crazy if we had some CE associated with the script? Like, what if you you read the script and you took a little test and you get an hour or two?
Or a direct response type thing.
Reading it?
Yeah, so you get continuing education for doing it, and we all need continuing education. It would
Why don't I just go on and just say, yeah, I read it? I mean, sure,
No.
I'm trying to say, how do you really? Yeah, I guess.
No,
I'm
no,
not-
At least you can check you saw
Get
it.
a half hour credit.
It's usually questions.
I think that might be something that you might want to refer back to the committee because I don't believe it's on your agenda.
I was waiting for you to do that.
But we could
It's
discuss it.
a very, very valid question, I think, but.
Well, thank you for validating my question, and committee chair, could you put that on our agenda for future meeting?
Vice chair, remind me of that afterwards. We'll do it.
Oh, brother. Okay.
I guess my only question is, does it go back to communication, education, or licensing?
I think it's a CE thing. I think it should start with public ed.
Public education.
But it doesn't matter. But I think Mr. Shad will take a look at whether or not there's some way we can put something maybe on the front cover or as we send out the email, linking it to our website for our newsletter. That might not be a bad idea. There's good information. Read it and heed it.
Very valuable information.
What?
You can put an alert on
Call it
there.
read and heed.
Any more questions from the board members? No? Public? Like any input on the script? Nothing?
The
Okay.
wonderful thing.
Let's move on. There's news media. The executive officer and public information officer participated in interviews and provided background information in response to the whole slew of media requests. So there's a whole bunch. You can read about it. I'm not going to go through each one, but we've been busy, obviously, with getting information out. And I think, Jen, you participated on some of those, right?
I'm kind of talking
Huh?
to various entities. Yes.
Yeah, very busy.
Okay.
Oh no,
God,
I got the
out now.
no. I see this one news media KPCC on May 11th. IV turmeric is that
Turmeric. Yeah, turmeric.
Okay, and hydrogen peroxide
Medications.
What is this?
It was
Something
an
I should be
infusion.
taking?
It was a fusion. Unfortunately, it was an infusion that ended up killing a patient. But
Oh, it
the patient
sounds
was
like it,
allergic. Yeah, it was not a good thing at all.
Don't try it. No.
Getting the information out. Any public input on any of the news media that we've been? Okay, move on. Public outreach. Staff reported the following public outreach activities by staff, and again, it's all listed. I don't think I want to go through every single one of them, but we've been very busy. Staff's been working overtime to do this stuff. And anything you want to add, Jenny, to it?
No.
Okay.
I think it's part of our obligation to get out and educate. So that's one way we do it. That's why we list it.
And we also have listed the future outreach activities here, and with dates of October 21st, October 27th, November 6th, and November 7th. Again, getting out, getting information out to the public and also to different entities out there. Any questions from public? Okay. There's also review and discussion of new news or journal articles, and you could also, those are provided to the board here, board members. You're welcome to look at those. I will just conclude now with future meeting dates for our Communication and Public Education Committee. December 13th, 2017 will be our next meeting. We also have January 31st, 2018. What's that?
The December 10th meeting was canceled because we don't have quorum.
Had to
So
that date.
yeah, so we're gonna just roll over to the January date, I believe.
Yeah, that's a matter of fact. That's right. Okay, new dates. January 31st, 2018 will be our next meeting for the Communication and Public Education Committee. April 25th, 2018. We also have July 11th, 2018, and also October 11th, 2018. And with that, I will conclude my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sanchez. And let's move on to agenda item number 7. That's the update from the Department of Consumer Affairs. So we are fortunate that we have the directors and the assistant deputy directors are here. So gentlemen, please come up. We have the director, Mr. Dean Graffello, and Mr. Chris Castrillo, the deputy director, Karen Nelson, the assistant deputy director, and Patrick Lee, the assistant deputy director. Okay, gentlemen, go ahead.
Vice President Law, President Gutierrez, Executive Officer Harold, Assistant Executive Officer Sodergren, thank you so much for allowing me to briefly provide this DC update. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my last interaction with the pharmacy board was quite memorable. I had the honor and privilege of being a judge at the annual costume contest for the board. And
did we win?
The pharmacy board does definitely impresses. A lot of the units had different motifs going, and again, it was truly impressive. I'm looking forward to being an annual judge for the costume contest. So I wanted to make sure to get that very important update out of the way. Thank you.
Well, let me before you start, let me just thank you all publicly for coming to do that judging. It's very important that we had impartial judges for this. So thank you very much for your time.
And if you want to do it again,
I'm on record. I'm on record.
I know it.
I plan to annually be there.
Kind of make sure our stuff goes through really quickly, okay? This is where we're going with this.
Makes
Okay?
complete sense.
Hopefully they included you like in the potluck or some candy or something.
I mean, I'm totally open-minded for my continued interactions with the board. So thank you again for the opportunity. First, I'd like to report some staffing changes at the department. Ms. Christine Lawley, who previously served as Deputy Director for Board and Bureau Relations, has joined the Medical Board of California as its Deputy Director, as you may well know. While we are sad to see Ms. Lawley go, we know she will do great things at the Medical Board, and we wish her the best in her new endeavor. Additionally, the department is welcoming a new Chief Deputy Director, Chris Schultz, a new Deputy Director of Administration, Natalie Daniels, and a new Deputy Director over Board and Bureau Services, Chris Castrillo, the gentleman to my right. He will be addressing the board here shortly. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Ms. Daniels' first day was yesterday, and Mr. Schultz's first day was a week ago this past Monday. So I'm happy to report that specific to the exec office, we are fully staffed and operational, as they say. Before coming to DCA, Mr. Schultz was previous Deputy Commissioner of Community Programs and Policy Initiatives at the California Department of Insurance since 2011. Ms. Daniels has been Fiscal Supervisor at the Judicial Council of California since 2015. She'll be overseeing the department's Office of Human Resources, Business Services Office, and Fiscal Operations. Mr. Castrillo is actually here, as I mentioned, and he'll provide this update and will give you an opportunity to introduce himself in a moment. I'm delighted to welcome our newest team members, and I'm confident that these staff additions will strengthen our ability to pursue the department's mission and services we provide to our various boards and bureaus. I hope you can join me in providing them with a very warm welcome. Specific to this past September's directors meeting. In September, we held the second directors quarterly meeting with board and executive officers. These quarterly meetings are an opportunity to ensure that the department continues an open dialogue with its boards and bureaus. To that end, we will still be holding an annual meeting with all board presidents to ensure that I'm available to you and that I can hear feedback from board leadership on important issues facing the department and its various boards and bureaus. With that, I want to thank you for your continued partnership and the work that you do to protect California consumers. As you folks very well know, just given the state of the opioid crisis here in the nation, globally to a certain extent, I'm so glad that there are, staunch protectionists of consumers in this board, and I welcome every opportunity to collaborate with this board on issues of that matter and beyond. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Castrillo.
Thanks, Dean. So as you are aware, we have some new faces in the DCA Executive Office, and as one of those new faces, I wanted to make sure to take the opportunity to introduce myself to all of you. As Dean mentioned, my name is Christopher Castrillo, and I was appointed the Deputy Director to the Office of Board and Bureau Services on October 9th. I come to DCA with a background in public policy and campaign management, having most recently worked as a legislative advocate where I covered a number of issue areas including labor, local government, youth mental health, foster care, healthcare, higher education, to name a few. I've also worked on candidate and initiative campaigns in both California and Oregon. While new to the DCA family, I'm greatly looking forward to applying my experience and skill set towards establishing an Office of Board and Bureau Services that implements the goals laid out in our strategic plan, exemplifies organizational effectiveness, and provides relevant, timely, and accurate information to all of our stakeholders. I want to also report that the department has reallocated available resources to increase staffing at the Office of Board and Bureau Services. These new resources will expand the services that we are currently able to provide and include assistance on and across all licensing and enforcement issues, facilitating intergovernment communication, providing board member and executive officer administrative and technical support, and executing the department's strategic plan. With that, I'm excited to announce that Karen Nelson and Patrick Lee will be joining the Office of Board and Bureau Services as our Assistant Deputy Directors. They are sitting right behind me. I'll ask them to wave to you all. Ms. Nelson has been the Chief Operations Officer at the American Leadership Forum Mountain Valley Chapter since 2014, and Mr. Lee has been Assistant Chief of External Affairs at Covered California since 2015. With our new staff structure, I believe we'll be able to further the mission, vision, and values that we have set forth as a department, and more importantly, serve the needs of California consumers. Please stay tuned for additional updates from myself and my team as we onboard and hit the ground running. A couple of quick items that I just wanted to share with you as part of our update. DCA released a new online license verification search for all boards and bureaus using the Breeze platform. The license search will expand current functionality and allow the public to conduct more flexible inquiries. For example, the new search allows inline filtering on a range of relevant data points, including primary and secondary status, city, county, and license type. A key focus when designing the new online license verification search was to ensure better performance, flow, and ease of use for our consumers. This new DCA search brings our offering closer to the familiar search capabilities common across the internet, allowing our stakeholders to access important data they require at their fingertips. The department has also officially launched its new Future Leadership Development Program, and that launched in May 2017, and they held the kickoff meeting with program participants and mentors in August 2017. The last meeting of the Future Leadership Development participants was this past October and featured Senator Jerry Hill. Expanding upon the department's current Leadership Academy training, the department is looking to help develop the best and brightest amongst the boards and bureaus into its future leaders. The program includes executive mentoring, customized leadership training, and project management, and it comes highly recommended from our department. The department has also established a pro rata work group of DCA and board executives to discuss potential improvements on how DCA communicates this issue to boards and bureaus. Pro rata is the process by which the department distributes the costs amongst its boards and bureaus to cover all departmental services such as information technology, legal, and publication services, to name a few. The work group held its first meeting in August 2017 and its second meeting this past October. The department will also be hosting a pro rata open house on November 14th, which we hope you'll be able to participate in and attend. On the strategic plan, just want to mention that if you haven't seen it, the department released its new strategic plan in July, and it outlines DCA's goals and objectives for the next 4 years, and that plan is available on the publications page of the DCA website. Lastly, just a quick reminder here on required board member trainings. The final board member orientation training is in 2017, is scheduled for November 15th. There is still room in the class if you need to register. Board members are required to complete this training within 1 year of appointment and reappointment to a board. This is a one-day training right here in Sacramento at DCA, which details the important functions and responsibilities of board members. Please contact DCA Solid Team or my office if you are interested in attending, and DCA members can also, board members can also register online. And finally, just a quick reminder that 2017 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year for the Department of Consumer Affairs. This means all employees and board members are required to complete this training in 2017, even if it was completed last year. The training is online, interactive, and can be completed at your convenience. If you have any questions on this or any of the required trainings during your tenure as a board member, please don't hesitate to contact my office for assistance. Just want to end to make sure you all know the department is committed to serving its boards and bureaus Much of the consumer protection value we provide through the department comes from boards such as the State Board of Pharmacy, and we always protect consumers better when we are working strongly together. And so with that, just if the department could be of any service to the board, please don't hesitate to let us know. Thank you for your diligent work and your valued partnership.
That's it? That's it?
Any questions from board members?
Hey, are these the people that are responsible for
That's
emergency?
great.
Yes.
Oh, well, okay. Okay. I've got a couple questions here. No, they had a goal of being efficient, time, and with timely responses. I really like that. The communication to protect consumers. We've got an emergency regulation that we put through in August. We haven't seen hide nor hair of it. I understand communication is pretty it's pretty sparse. We'd like to know where it is and when it's going to go through. If you've got a process for it, if we've got any hope with it, should we put pretty please on it? You know, you talk about protected the consumers. That's what we want too. And an emergency regulation, to our mind, shouldn't take practically 3 months to do. So we are concerned not only for the moment, but for the future too, because drug therapy is becoming more and more complicated. There's going to be more and more input from the public that we may need to put through emergency regulations for. We don't want to feel helpless. And at the moment, we are feeling very helpless. And so, we'd like some vision of what we can expect short term here. And I hope it's short term.
Appreciate the question, Board Member Shad. Coincidentally, I spoke with the department's Chief General Counsel, Ryan Marcroft, this morning specific to your reg. He told me he has wrapped that up, and you will be hearing from DCA, ASAP.
Well, we've never heard ASAP before, but I hope that's accurate, because the board president, the vice president, have all been concerned about this. Board members have talked about it. It's conversation, and the idea that an emergency regulation is kind of ignored is bothersome to all members of the board. And so,
again, I will follow up directly with Ryan after I leave today's meeting to give Ginny or whomever else a specific date and time. But again, coincidentally, I spoke with Mr. Marcroft this morning.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could communicate that to Jenny and to the board president and vice president. Yeah.
More than happy to. And then secondly, during my tenure here at DCA, the reg process is one that I am becoming acutely aware of. The interest of improving the process.
Nice euphemism, yeah, right.
I think it's important for folks to know in terms of my orientation to the issue. Previous to coming to DCA, as legislative staff, my understanding of regulations was ensuring that the notion of promulgating regulations were in the bill that I was either directly or indirectly involved in. As you folks very well know, promulgating regulations is quite an undertaking. And so my point is that as I get a better understanding of the reg process, I'm very much interested in making it more effective, more efficient for all of DCA's programs.
Well, yes, and what's particularly concerning with this piece of regulation is that there's nothing substantial in it. It just require minor review.
So, I defer to you in terms of that insight. Sounds like you have a better understanding of the reg process than I do. However, minor or major arguably is in the eye of the beholder. I have complete trust and obviously reliable on the DCA team that is involved in the reg process. And I know they're going to evaluate each reg process with a fine-tooth comb.
Okay, well, you'll let us know then, right?
Without question.
Any other comments from board members? No? Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Any public comments? Seeing none. Could we go to 10? The self-assessment form before we do recess. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 10, which is the discussion and consideration of proposed regulations to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1735.2 related to the compounding self-assessment form 17M39 and the proposed regulations to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1715 and 1784 to update self-assessment forms 17M13, 17M14, and 17M26. Jenny? Okay, Anne?
So one of the tools that we give to our licensees are self-assessment forms that are compilations of pharmacy law, and it's a way for them to do a self-check to make sure that they're complying with the law. For the various facilities that we have them in, it's a requirement to be completed each July 1 of each odd numbered year, and then when various other triggers occur. The forms themselves are incorporated by reference into the different regulation sections that Vice President Law just discussed. So the challenge becomes, as laws change continually, keeping those forms updated. So we've had the opportunity to work with our DCA Council and come up with a different way to effectuate the regulation the way that we need to, that will hopefully, moving forward, streamline the process when we're updating the forms to reflect the changes in the law. So what you have in the board packet are 3 different regulation sections with the proposed language in it. And essentially what the proposal is doing, it's not changing the self-assessment requirement, but we're specifying some of the inherent requirements of the form into the regulation language itself. For example, we're specifying in the regulation language that it needs to be certified under penalty of perjury, and that as part of the self-assessment you have to disclose the staff members involved. Those were things that previously were effectuated through just the completion of the form, but with every change then to the form we had to do a full rulemaking. It is our hope and belief that moving to this new model will allow us to do a one-time full regulation, and then moving forward when we update the forms to update the changes in the law, those will be non-substantive changes, section 100 changes, that where the board has already delegated the authority to the executive officer to do that.
Any public comments? Board members?
Well, I guess I have a question because I'm looking at the. My mic's on. So there's changes in this in the attachment, right? Into the proposal for 1715, and those aren't the. Because there, it seems like there's substantial changes in there. You're just adding on to it that we give the executive officer the ability to approve non-substantial changes, right?
So what the proposal is doing is taking elements of the form, like the signature block, the certificate, taking that element of the form and putting the requirement into the regulation itself. So this first go around, should the board agree, would be a full rulemaking. And you would be effectuating the changes in the proposal. And then moving forward, after that regulation is in place, changes to the self-assessment form could be done through a section 100 change.
Okay.
Thank you. Maybe I can elaborate just a little bit and it might help too. So under your, can you, I'm trying to look at member of y'all.
Just know I'm staring at the back of your head, okay?
Gosh, I hope I got it. So right now, under the existing regulation, the board has incorporated the form by reference, and the elements that you see now enumerated are in the existing forms. However, every time you go to readopt a new form, you have to justify its contents, and that's part of where we're running it. It takes so long. You have to do a full rulemaking. Well, if you've changed the standard for a pharmacy in terms of record keeping or something like that, and the questions that are on the self-assessment, you want the the substantive change to the regulation to be the one that matters as opposed to the one that changes the form itself. So what we're doing, as Ann said, is incorporating all the substantive requirements that a PIC or a pharmacy will have to do in order to comply with these, and putting them, instead of being in the form that's, or in as well as being incorporated into the form that's incorporated by reference, they'll also be in the regulation text. So certification by penalty of perjury, identifying information that they have to sign each document, that they have to identify what a corrective action is if they answer a self-assessment question no, that has to be available to the inspector when the inspector comes, those kinds of things.
So, I mean, I think this is a great idea, but we're not going to just stop at the self-assessment of a pharmacy. I mean, it seems like we've had to go through this laborious process with like technician and pharmacists when we revised their applications and everything. I mean, is there a way that we could apply this to other forms?
I think Laura probably will respond, but part of the issue is you see the form in the technician reg, because in order to get the technician registration forms in, that's kind of how we had to reference it by form number, which is why you're seeing it so frequently back. The other forms we don't have that requirement for, with the exception of the self-assessment form, which in the past, every 2 years, we had to run it through a rulemaking. And typically, even when we started earlier, like a year ago right now, the board at this meeting last year approved the self-assessment form. That particular form still hasn't gone through the process.
Right. I mean, I'm trying to get beyond the self-assessment.
Yeah, you got it.
I mean, so is that maybe we could roll this? I mean, I totally get self-assessment, understand that, but could we roll this and maybe do this with other forms?
To the extent that we can include the substantive requirements that are in a form in a reg, we've been fairly thoughtful, I think, about that, and we will continue to try to do that, so that the only time that the board itself has to do a rulemaking is if you're going to change what the essence is that you're asking of the licensee or applicant to do.
Okay. I mean, I'm just all for efficiency in government, right?
Well, the other alternative is we put all of our forms in regs, which means you can't change anything really without doing that. We have so many forms because we have so many licensing programs. Our law book would be unbelievably large and totally unworkable. You wouldn't be able to find anything in it. So we try to specify the general information that we're going to require for a particular thing. We work with legal in that regard so that we're descriptive enough to have the essence of what we're going to need to evaluate an application, but not be so specific that we have to put the specific questions in the reg, which for us, if we only regulated one thing, that would be one thing, but we've got so many regulatory programs and so many modifications we track, it would just be unworkable.
The take back, I think those forms are a good example. So the requirements that the board needs are available on the form, and the form is available. But technically, if a person provided all the detail that's required in the reg, they could do it on their own paper. We created the form so that it matches all the requirements, but the form itself technically isn't required. Just the elements are required.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from board members? We have completed quite a motion to.
It's prepared. Is that better? Included in the memo is, should the board agree with the staff's recommendation, there is language that could possibly be used to facilitate a motion should the board wish to take action.
I could make that motion.
Okay.
And before
All right.
you make
Well-
that motion, could I recommend a slight modification to the language? So the language that was used here refers to a non-substantive changes that authority would be given to the EO. I would actually recommend that you authorize the EO to make clarifying changes consistent with the board policy to the rulemaking package.
In addition to non-substantive?
She already had, because of your recent rulemaking where you gave her the authority to make non-substantive changes, she can already do that. you delegated that authority to her through a rulemaking, so she can actually make non-substantive changes, I think.
And I'm going right back upstairs as soon as we get through here.
Anyhow, but what this would be, for example, if there was perhaps an inconsistency in one provision that didn't get caught in another, or language changes, it's not that the policy would be the same, but I think it's a little bit more than just non-substantive.
All right, so let me do this and you tell me if I'm doing it right. To initiate the formal rulemaking process to amend the text of Title 16 CCR Section 1715, 1735.2, and 1784 relating to self-assessment form requirements as proposed and authorized the executive officer to make any clarifying changes consistent with board policy to the rulemaking package and provide a 45-day public comment period.
Second.
Nicely said.
You okay?
Well
Right.
done.
Moved by Debbie and second by Greg. Any further discussions? If not, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
You need public comment.
Oh, and public comment? Seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Either hand?
Either hand.
You guys left-handed.
Either hand.
You're right here.
Oppose, abstain, and motion carried. Okay, so we have complete most of the items of the agenda, and it's a good time that we should take a lunch break. Let's reconvene at 1:30. Okay, thank you.